Welcome to the HyperPod. We have Andy from HypurrFi, one of the biggest money markets on Hyperliquid. Welcome to the pod.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here. I love talking to cats.
I know. I'm looking pretty crisp today. My ears are wiggling. My glasses are looking clean. My backpack is seemingly stuck to me. But I think we're bullish today. Hype crossed $21. It seems to be holding. So I'm feeling positive. How about you?
Yeah, really positive. I was tracking markets a little bit last night, but over the past couple of days, it's just been steady around 19 to 21. And so since Dubai, and that was kind of the wonder I had is like, oh, everyone's a token. Like, are people buying this up? Is there like weird market movements? But now it seems pretty organic. Like people are coming back and just like TWAPing in and like making sure their bags are good as they hear more announcements about other teams coming and going live and all that. So yeah, I feel great about the market. It looks really strong.
Yeah, it's feeling good. Tell us a bit more about token, right? What was your feel after the week? Like, is Hyperliquid a consensus trade? Is the ecosystem booming? Or tell us a bit more.
It is not a consensus trade. The ecosystem is booming. I think a lot of people are still kind of like token's one of these interesting ones in conferences, and I'm going to consensus next week as well in Toronto, where like the main floor is where people who are like sort of in the industry, like kind of tuned in, go to find out what's going on, and they find Ripple and Cardano and all stablecoins and all sorts of like big projects, and they're like projects that will go and pay $300,000 for the space, and then you pay another $300,000 for the construction of the booth, and then you pay another, right? Projects who are really dumping that kind of money into there, and that is like the consensus trade right now is like, oh, crypto is growing. What's happening in the industry? Hype and Hyperliquid it is not a consensus trade because everybody in crypto like knows about it and is like trying to figure out how they get on and like just talking about it, but it's not like what all the normies and all the people who are, in investment banking and trying to find their crypto strategy for the next 5 years are thinking about yet. So I don't think it's a consensus trade, which I think is actually insanely bullish because that means like, right, a lot of people, they just like kind of say, oh, it's another alt one. Yeah, it's just another move. It's just another, bear or whatever it is. And they don't know what's happening here. And then you go to the Hyperliquid events or meet up with friends at other events and like find the little Hyperliquid gang in the circle, and everybody's like voracious about news and what we're building, what we're doing. And it really is this like intensity, so much so that founders of other chains and projects on other chains and like all over the place, they'll find the Hyperliquid crew and come be like, okay, what's going on over here? Give me the alpha. Like, do this. People are hungry for it. I think that is kind of what I pulled from token.
Yeah, 100%. I think like one of the funniest things I see on Twitter these days is, obviously the Ethereum account is a bit more active, and then the moment I open up the comments, I just see Hyperliquid. And everyone's just commenting Hyperliquid. So the community is hustling. We're making the chain known, and we're making moves. Talking about making moves, movement is no longer making moves, but nonetheless, it is what it is. So tell us.
Let me go back to token for 1 sec. I want to shout out Kirby and Noel from Hyper Collective. I got my shirt finally. I got the Hyper
There we go.
From Gather.
Oh, that's clean.
These guys threw a great event. There was a couple of really great Hyperliquid focused events, but the Hyper Collective team is awesome. People showed up. The sponsors, they were great as well. So that was cool, and I'm wearing that, and then I'm also wearing my HypurrFi swag. I got the beach shorts.
Oh man!
Here.
Man, there we go.
So limited edition on those, but that was fun. And then staking rewards and loop type team through the Hyperliquid forum at the very beginning of the week too, and that was really interesting to see because staking summit was well attended. It was good, and it was kind of like this whole hotel area. And then the second day they had, in the afternoon, the Hyperliquid forum, and it was 2 smaller rooms upstairs and off to the side.
Yeah.
And they were packed. It was
packed. Yeah.
And people went to the panels too. There were panels, and those were packed. Those were standing room only. And so it was like one of these moments where like, oh, we're onto something real good. So that was a good, but I did want to shout out the teams that are building here, whether it's community or funds or apps or whatever it happens to be, are doing the work right now. And that's it's really starting to show.
Exactly. Yeah, the organic growth has just been insane to sort of be a part of. There's so many other chains out there that are basically paying for growth and are running out of money at a drastic pace because the payment for that growth is in tokens, right? And there's only a certain amount of liquidity for their tokens. So ultimately it causes price to go down and creates this like negative flywheel for the ecosystem. But not the case for
yield come from.
Yeah, there we go. You are the yield in most cases. But so tell us a bit more about like the story behind HypurrFi, for you guys as the team. Like, where are you guys from? Like, how did you even discover Hyperliquid? Like, why are you doing what you're doing?
Absolutely. So I'll start there. Why are we doing what we're doing is we saw what Jeff and team built and the mechanisms behind it, organic, community first, product that people want to use. And then they use that product and the fees, the revenue from that product to make the flywheel happen. And that is fundamentally the opposite of what most crypto has done for the past 5 years is, we want to get the flywheel going. Let's start spending money on it that made up magic internet tokens. And hopefully that'll get things moving. And that does work once in a while for like some projects. It has worked, but the hit rate is so low. And then that's a gameable system too. And once you kind of figure out that game, if you've got money, if you're like an early stage fund or, you're doing these OTC deals or all this sort of things, that's what's flooded the market so far. It's like, we'll just start the flywheel. But then that ends up being an extraction of it. What Hyperliquid did is the opposite. They built a great product that people want to use and pay for. People pay fees to trade on Hyperliquid. Then those fees turn into that flywheel mechanism to really further incentivize and push that flywheel. That's why we're here. Because that's a good approach. It's a good business approach. Like, have a business that people want to pay for first. Oh, okay, great. Like that's a crypto fundamental that we kind of lost along the way in DeFi Ponzi season, which was fun as hell. But like we did lose that along the way. And then that gets proliferated with meme season and NFTs and like all that sort of thing. You can see why it happened the way it did. But then when Hyperliquid emerges and says like, here's just a product, just use the product or don't. You're free to trade elsewhere. Don't use the product if you don't want to. Like that perspective and that approach is so powerful. And it doesn't necessarily work unless the product is really good and it's good. So let me get back to the beginning, which is where do we come from? So we've been in DeFi for a very long time. I'll tell you a little bit about our team's background, the founding team and myself as well. But we were building a chain to do that. We were building a blockchain to do that. We raised some money to build that chain. And that was the idea, is to like build a product that people want to use. And we thought that product was Yield, was Yield in DeFi and a variety of other sources. And if we can build that product first, and then that will engender the flywheel, then we're off to the races. Now, as a part of that chain, we had a lending protocol and a stablecoin built in as sort of an enshrined thing. And so we're getting ready to launch the chain. We're waiting on infrastructure providers. We built it for about a year to get ready for an MVP launch. And then Hyperliquid happened. And we were kind of like, they did it. And not only did they do it, but they didn't do it with Yield, which is a little bit of an esoteric product. They did it with perps trading. And we were like, of course, people want to do that. That's a great product. And it makes a ton of money too. So it's like, that's what people want to do. And so it was like, well, we're not building the chain now. Like, like it's just not time for that. Maybe in the future, layer 3 on top of Hyperliquid. But right now, there's no reason to do that. But there's a really good reason to have a lending protocol for this, because people are going to want to do levered lending. These people understand leverage. There's not levered spot. This is a huge opportunity. We had the product kind of ready to go, and the team was involved in Hyperliquid trading. So I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, but it was just a no-brainer. And testnet dropped like right after DevCon of 2024, and we were like, let's just go put our stuff on there and see how it works. And And then we got immense traction on testnet because we've been building this product and we're really product focused for a long time. So the lending product is really strong. The user experience and what you can do with it, it's incredibly powerful. We try to give people a lot of data with their position and all that, and that has taken off. People really enjoy that about the product. So that's kind of how we ended up here. Is like Jeff, man, like they just did it. They're so good that it's like, okay, this mechanism for revenue and sustainability, that was our goal. Sustainable mechanisms for incentives so that we're not just inflating token supply away and making, throwing this away and throwing essentially the bag holders under the bus, but rather how do you get a community that comes back, that is an advocate, is you pay them, you incentivize them, but you pay them from real revenue and real yield. Well, Hyperliquid did it.
Yeah, no, I think they hit it out of the park. And I think that's really what inspired everyone else. So, we were all like early partakers in this, and we obviously got to benefit, right, via the airdrop. But a lot of, if not, I'd say more than 50-60% of the airdrop recipients are actually builders now on the chain. And you don't really see that in any other project. It's more like, okay, farm, move on, what's next? But there was something different in the community, and like there was like real friendships, real bonds built throughout this process. So, in your eyes, like you said, you guys got immense traction, even on testnet, which, most other projects like have zero users except their own devs on testnet. Why is this community different? Why are these users so hungry to use products on this chain?
Well, I want to be very transparent. I got no hype airdrop. I did not trade on Hyperliquid before. I'm not a trader. And so like I don't trade on any perp sexes or dexes. I did, centralized exchange trading back in 2017 or whatever for, $100 here and there. But like I'm a builder and I round trip tokens. That's my magic powers. I get them and I hold them to zero because I am Stockholm syndrome or whatever. So I did not get the airdrop. Now the excitement around the airdrop certainly did like push me into understanding what is this. And my founders, so Andrew Redden, Andrew Lloyd on Twitter, he's founder. He's a trader, a longtime trader, as well as a builder. And so he was on Hyperliquid and he did get airdrop, and that did like pivot our attention, and it pivoted the community's attention, and that attention wasn't like, oh, look at all the free money. It was that for a second. Why is this happening? And then why is numbers not going down? Like every airdrop dumps. Like that's just what they do. Why is it not dumping? And that makes you go into the docs and just like read, go listen to the Jeff podcast and then talk to a couple of people like, why is this not happening? And then you learn about the assistance fund and you learn about the HLP and you're like, oh, this is something fundamentally different. And so when you ask like, why do people who are airdrop recipients like start to build? It's because that journey of like, oh, this is fundamentally different. This is not an exchange that is just trying to extract. This is an exchange that is step one of something they're trying to build. And do I want to be a part of that? Well, now if you got airdrop money, it's like, yeah, let's go spend the money. Let's build and be a part of that because the opportunity is so massive. Because a lot of us have been in crypto for a long time and have seen the opportunity with smart contracts and permissionless systems and decentralization and DeFi, composability, all those awesome things. And then we've slowly seen that degrade over time for a lot of different reasons. But all of a sudden, we've got an opportunity to do that again. And the team is doing it differently. Like it's not the same Genesis story that Bitcoin had or that Ethereum had or a magic, like we're going to start with thousands and thousands of validators story. They have a different approach. And that is an approach that is measured and it is thoughtful and you can see the decisions behind it. And if you can't see them right now, usually they end up revealing themselves. You can see things back. And the team has made steady progress on things like decentralization and critiques and all of those permissionless things. So that's what I think people see. It's like, okay, they are delivering on promises. And do I want to be a part of that ride as they continue to deliver? What have they done so far? To absolutely slay every dragon, right? Like there's just like the growth is insane. They continue to kill it. well, I want to get on that ride as well, because I can align myself with that philosophically and morally and as financially, like genuinely, all those things. I think that's why people are turning. And then when you start doing that, you see you meet people like Hypio Man and you guys and everybody in the ecosystem who's like, okay, we are building this together as more than just like a money grab, and then you see the growth too, and it's kind of pushes.
Yeah, so like the builder community has also been evolving and growing, and it is different, right? Because it's like what I've noticed is like, yes, we all compete in different ways, but we actually realize, hey, this is bigger than ourselves, and we're collectively pushing, we're collectively sharing alpha, like giving heads up to say, hey, like this big, let's say Athena's coming to the chain, hey, HypurrFi, set up your market, or X and Y and Z is coming. Why? So that the users get, like, they can take part in this very early on. And that's critical, right? For any new launch or anything exciting happening on the chain, there has to be products ready for users to use. And when that is the case, then that just sucks in more users and more liquidity. So like for you as a builder, right? I'm not sure if you've built in other ecosystems before, but what's been the difference, right? Because in this scenario, you're not getting paid to do this, right? You didn't get like a fat grant. I won't count the airdrop as a grant. It's not the same thing. But like from a builder perspective, right? It's not like Jeff was like, hey, Andy, here's here's a couple of $100K hype. I can enjoy it and build something dope for the ecosystem. There was nothing like that. And contrary to what you might think, that was exactly what this ecosystem needed. Why is that?
So before we as we're built for testnet and started to do this, we went and met the Hyperland teams and Felix guys and Amit, the TimeSwap guys, and like a bunch of the other lending protocols and all the dexes as well. And we went and asked them, like, what does it look like? Why are you building here? Like, let's talk. Let's have open lines of communication. And we still do have those lines of communication, good relationships. And that was part of it. Is they all just saw a need, like us, like, well, there's a need for these products. And if there's a need, go look at these users. Is there demand? And the users are flat out telling us, like, yes, there's demand. I want to do this with my hype. I want to go and help build this. So that was it. I don't need a grant. I got users. They say they want to come. Are you guys going to put money up? Yes, we're going to put up money and we're going to use your protocol. Okay, here's the protocol. And then they use it. Like, no grant needed. The grants are meant to make that happen. That's what grants are supposed to do. They're supposed to incentivize. If you go look at like optimism grants, there's a couple different classifications, but most of the money is just meant to go directly to users to incentivize use of your protocol. And so there's like OP token emissions that match a pool or whatever it happens to be that the foundation gives out, so that when users come, they get extra juice on their yield or whatever it happens to be. Well, if users are already telling us that they're going to come use the product anyway, then there's no need for that. And so why is Hyperliquid incentivized to say, okay, let's give away all our money to people who are going to dump the token? Like it just makes no sense. Like you can see the economics. We've known this for a very long time. And so by removing that, but having a group of dedicated users, we don't need it. We're not interested, because now we're going to deal with grants and like all this sort of stuff anyway. I have built in other ecosystems, Optimism in particular, and like did the grant hustling and all that. And it's such a headache, man.
It's so much effort. It's like so much effort, and it's like, it's frustrating.
And they talk you down
and it's politics,
Yeah, and even they try to decentralize, and I really do think the Optimism Foundation tries to be good and work towards, and the grants committee in particular, it's decentralized. They're doing their best. But you just run into this. And before my life in crypto, I was in academics as well. And so I dealt with grants as well. It's the same thing. It's like that just becomes your life, and that becomes your job, is juggling that. And that's just part of like how you get funding in academics. That's just kind of part of the deal. But when we're building products, financial products in particular, for people to use, just make a good product. Like that is the grant, if you can do that. So, well, we already had the team too. So like this helped us out. It's like we weren't spinning up from nothing. We had team, we had tech, we're like pretty ready to deploy. We've been building for a while for this other chain. And so that really did help and give us, a head start. It's like, well, okay, we can put something out and see what it is. And then, so we did that on testnet. And what we found on testnet, it wasn't just that we had traction, but for no reason. It was really hard to get testnet hype. And so we built a faucet. And we went and talked to whale friends of ours, and we just like got a bunch of testnet hype, and we built a really great faucet using our UI that anybody could use. We gated it so you could only do it once a day or whatever it was. But we were the easiest place to come with a good UI to come get testnet hype. And there were absolutely farmers who came and just like collected it every day to try and spam it for whatever. No reason. There's no airdrop or anything like that.
Potential airdrop.
That's what it was. But then what we also did is like we have wallet analysis software, and so we can go see like who is using this, and there are some whales who are just coming because it was the best place to come get hype. And so that's how we staked our claim first. Is like people are asking for a faucet, we want to use a faucet. Let's make a great faucet. Go. And that's how we've approached product development too. And what we've seen is in this ecosystem, it's not. It really is about like what does that user. And so even now, that's how we build. We have users that come into our DMs and they say, okay, I really want this kind of market. We have the H fund market up there. Some guys in the group chat were like, Andy, we need an H fund market. Let's get it up. What do we have to do? And I was like, okay, if you're going to use the H fund market, like, is there going to be demand? They're like, absolutely. The whales are going to come on in. So like, okay, we'll do it. And H fund holders, you guys got to show up because right now,
didn't Lorical seed the market or something?
So in order to have a market, we need liquidity on the DEXs in order to do liquidations if that were to happen. And there was no liquidity on the DEXs. And so we DM'd him and we're like, hey, how do we activate your community to come and provide liquidity on the DEXs? And he was like, oh, I'll just do it. And so him and a couple other guys that are bag holders, they came and they provided a bunch of liquidity on Kitten and HyperSwap so that we could have that market. So that's great, right? That's that sort of community effort as well. It's like, hey, we need this so that you can give your community this. They provide it. There's no deals. It's just like everyone's just doing it. No special deals, no OTC, no token agreements on the back end or anything like that. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Yeah. And what are you most excited for in the next 6 months as we sort of go into the second half of this year? Or approaching it, like, what do you think is the biggest unlock for HyperEVM and then HyperCore together? And what are you personally excited to see take this ecosystem even higher?
So the low-hanging fruit, the easy answers, I got to say those first, is because precompiles are huge and they will unlock a tremendous amount of value from core to EVM. And what those write precompiles really mean is actions on core, or events on core can trigger smart contracts on EVM and vice versa. And that will allow some really interesting things. K-Hype, for example, the Kinetic team and the way that they're building their LST, there's a lot of excitement around that, which also means there's a lot of liquidity around that will then be able to flow to the EVM. I think HyperDrive and a couple other projects are talking about doing tokenized perps positions as well. You need write precompiles to be able to do that because the smart contracts need to be able to talk to positions on core or whatever that happens to be. And that means there's this entire world of trading and financial activity that's happening on the DEX, on the exchange, that now can trigger actions. And so, for example, like if you need a really quick loan to bolster your position in a price cascade, well, all of a sudden we could potentially do a really quick flash loan for USDXL, swap it to USDC, bolster your position, wait for it, and either it corrects or you lose it and you get liquidated. But like there's really interesting opportunities there with trading that are yet to be explored. So precompiles, I think, open a whole different class of things that we don't even know what that'll look like yet in a lot of cases. So that's thing one I'm excited about. Do you want me to keep going or do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, no, bullish. Make it keep going.
The other one is a little more like mind share. As Hyperliquid gains mind share, there's going to be this flood of users. And that is like just this flood that will happen. And not to reference our one of our delightful influencers, Flood, but when the airdrop happened, like that's great. We grabbed this mind share, and now we're capturing mind share through users and financial movement, and that comes through fees. People are still trading, it turns out, in crypto. Oh, of course. When you say it that way, you're like, well, yeah, of course, people are still trading. But as hedge funds, as desks start moving onto Hyperliquid and moving capital, as people's hype exposure becomes like more known and understood, as people get more confident with the EVM and how these systems work as they get to know us and others, and those funds start to flow, then the rest of DeFi eventually comes over. So like, as Berachain Boyko vaults end, they've got to decide, those users have to decide where they want to put their funds. And some might continue to use Bera or swap over to, I don't know what chain is like in the next rotation for farming, but like at some point people will find their way to Hyperliquid in their rotation, and then they'll realize like, oh, there's a lot more here. And so I think that is a wave of people in the next 6 months that I think is going to just take over.
100%. I think to add on that, like, like we chatted about token earlier, but there really isn't this sort of frenzy from the broader market on Hyperliquid. It's still very much that same community that, got the airdrop, and then like all of crypto Twitter was like, what? I didn't accept the T's and C's to claim the airdrop. And then those people sort of, I don't know, they haven't come back yet, but the current community, little by little, they're coming on. And like, I think with what really helps like move that needle is like players like Athena, USDT Zero, like those type of larger teams and projects, right, bring with them a whole new set of capital allocators and sort of interest, right? Because there is already a lot of capital in those assets, and that naturally brings those users and sort of brings that stamp of approval, because we believe, right, and we know that this thing's gonna keep growing. But oftentimes, if you're not in the ecosystem and you're in your own like echo chamber on Twitter, you might think like Berachain is still the hardest thing when it's not, right? And unfortunately, people lost quite a lot of money in those Bera vaults. So
So the way, like, if you're found in crypto, one of the questions you're always asking is what chain? Like, where do I deploy? And grants are one of those major questions, because projects dangle money in front of you. The ag layer, Polygon's ag layer, they got treasury, right? And they need to spend it because Polygon's like only poly market basically. And so what are they going to do for their token holders to increase movement? They're going to spend some money and get activity. And so that's why they do those campaigns. And then as a founder, you look at that and say, okay, who's going? Who am I competing with? Are they going to dick me around, or am I actually going to get a grant here? What can I use that for? Like, it's part of the calculus that you do. Yeah. And very often, and whether you're a small project just starting out or large projects, it's the same question. Go to Chainlink, and you go to Dune Analytics and whoever it happens to be, like big treasury places, and they look at every chain, because it takes, you got to allocate engineering time and education time, and you got to update your docs, and now you got to do co-marketing. Like, it's an effort to do that. And so there's thousands of new chains all the time. There's only ever more up-only chains. So why this one? And that's a good question. Now, what we've seen, what I've seen personally, is when I go and talk to these teams, I get assigned to the Hyperliquid guy at their organization. And there's one person who's like the champion, and they're like IPO'd out, they're like Maxi, they're like Buddy all day. They joined the call,
EVM, like trading all the new coins.
the layer zero dude jumps on the call with these on, like, so there's like a guy there, and it depends on how much pull they have in the organization, but they're like advocating. Usually we have champions. And if you're listening to this and you're one of these people, and your app or your service isn't on Hyperliquid yet, and they're thinking about it, you gotta go be that guy. You got to go and explain what is the value proposition, what are they building, and why is it there? It's active users with money who really want to use your products. They're on HyperPod. Everybody else is farming. These are the people here, real users. And you got to get that message across to your CTO, to your CEO, to whoever it happens to be, investors, if you have them. This is why we are coming to Hyperliquid no matter what, and make that push. And so I think as we see that, and as USDT and as Athena and as unmentioned come, everybody's coming. And so the question is, and you can say this to your CEO, do we want to be the last ones there? Or do we want to like stake our claim and be there? And I think that is just going to happen en masse, because real users with real money. The other thing, like these sort of users that have gone away, people say to me all the time, it's like, oh, I missed the airdrop. I'm just not going to do it. And that's absolutely how I work. Like I saw Barachain and I was like, I just don't have the energy to care about this. I hope all my friends make a lot of money, and I'm missing that one. I'm just missing it. Okay, and I checked out. And a lot of people do that. And so when people say that to me now, they're like, I missed the airdrop. I'm just out. I'm like, did you? Because there's things happening. Remember Solana? And Solana, right? The early days, like there's a lot going on. People are making money. There's like memes. It's this sort of stuff. NFTs, and then it kind of died down and nobody cared.
Yeah, and that's a mistake I made, right? Because like once the FTX thing happened, I was like, I literally remember the thought. I saw Solana at like $10, and I was like, yeah, thank goodness I didn't buy. And I was like, yeah, I'm so smart. Like I knew that ecosystem was a scam, and then it rose from the ashes, right? And that's really. That's the difference, right? Like if you're there and you see that there are real people that really believe, you only need, like in my view, you only need like 100 believers in an ecosystem, and they can just yap loud enough on Twitter and sort of build something reasonable, and that itself will just keep growing over time. And that's what we see.
I saw the same thing. I did the exact same thing with Solana. I faded it, and then it went down, and I was like, I'm so smart. But then it rises from the ashes. It does great, and there's real products and good builders there. It's not only a shitter's factory, there's DeFi there, and there are people building there. But what really solidified that for me was I did the exact same thing with BNB. I faded it. I was there in 2020 when they launched. I played around on there because it was DeFi summer. You had to do that. And then I was like, I'm getting out of here, $40 or whatever. I was like, I'm just not going to mess with this. This is just not for me. And then it plummets down to $8 or like $4 or whatever. And in the worst of it, actually, so they launched the token first. They launched the token in like 2018, 2019, or somewhere in there. As the exchange token. It was like if you used their token for fees, you got way discounted fees or something. And then they launched the chain as well. Yeah. But the token went down to, I don't know, $8 or $4 or whatever. But they had a community. They had investors and users and people who really love Binance. And those people are still out there. They only love Binance. They're crazy about it. And that token, the price went parabolic as well. And so I just missed that because I missed that community, mostly like Asian community, and I'm Western. And so, part of that is just like my lens. Yeah. Then the exact same thing happens with Solana. I'm like, what is happening? How do I keep missing these mega ones? and then I saw it with Hyperliquid, and it was the same thing. It is based around an exchange and trading, which is not my typical go-to. But I was like, okay, is this going to happen again? And it's oh yeah, this is the same formula. I see it all. People fade it, people leave, but there's genuine builders really there in the trenches, making products that are worth using around a team that has really good fundamentals. Man, I'm not missing this one. So I try to tell people that too, but who knows if we get through.
Yeah, like I have so many friends still that I'm like, the airdrop happened and now they're back to like farming pump fund tokens. And I'm like, guys, that ship has sailed, and like pump is doing well. That's like a different conversation, but it's more just like, people have this tendency to be lazy, right? And it's like one of the biggest lessons I've learned is like, if you can be consistent and like be in the right ecosystem at the right time, you can make generational gains just from doing that. Like you can just be a user, right? You don't even necessarily need to be a builder, but it takes showing up and like being active in the community, because it's hard to have conviction if you're not really speaking to others and you don't get that sense of the energy, right? Because there is an energy in Hyperliquid, right? There is you can launch a product and it can organically grow. It can organically get TVL. It can organically get like spread by word of mouth on Twitter. And you don't have to do any private deals, no private TVL deals. And that is legitimately possible in Hyperliquid. And there's not many other ecosystems that can say that, right? Yeah.
So at the beginning of this little diatribe we're doing, you said, what are the big unlocks that are coming that are exciting, but what am I personally excited for? And so mine is like a little bit off the beaten path, but it speaks directly to these groups of users who they have bags of SOL or XRP or whatever, BCH, right? There's like tons of people who are bag holders across crypto. And it's so much work. You got to go sell that, and then that's a taxable event in one way or another. And then you got to move your money to USDC, which some people don't like, and then you got to move it to Hypercore, and like you do this whole thing. Like there's a lot of friction there still. But one thing that I think will be, it'll start slow, but then again turn into a roaring tsunami, is when the unit team starts unlocking USOL, when they unlock UFART, when they unlock UXRP and UADA. And there's no slowing down. Like they want all of the crypto assets available here. So Dogecoin, there's still Dogecoin's still in like the top 15 or whatever it is. Like there's tons of liquidity out there. What are people doing with their Doge? They're just trading it. Well, why don't I keep my bag of $5 million worth of Dogecoin and put it on a lending protocol? Oh, I can do DeFi with Dogecoin. I can do DeFi with XRP and then play in Hyperliquid and go and use these tools, or just trade on core. That unlock is going to be slow, but it's going to start pushing people. And when some massive XRP holders, they can't sell because they're like huge holders and they have agreements or whatever it is, but they or relationships, maybe not agreements, but you can't sell your XRP, but you can lend it. Let me deposit it. Let me borrow a bunch of hype and go stake it. All of a sudden, we start to see these cross-chain things happening, and it's not because of the technology, it's because of the liquidity and the users. And that's the thing that like the super chain thesis and like all this cross-chain stuff misses sometimes. Even Aglair, they know like, okay, we got to pull all the liquidity together. We got to get the money together. But it's not just the money, it's moving the money. It's users who actually want to move the money, not wash trading from market makers and that sort of thing. I think those unit unlocks are going to be insane. I think things are going to really, really get crazy around here.
Yeah, definitely. Because let's take BTC for example, right? And you want to bring native Bitcoin onto Ethereum. Okay, so what are you going to do? Okay, I have to either take BTC, Coinbase BTC, Lombard BTC, Solve BTC, Lorenzo BTC. The list goes on, right? And the trust assumptions on each one of those assets is endless. And so that research process for a user, it's just too much, right? And there's like not liquidity for everything, and basically the barriers to that liquidity moving onto Ethereum, which is the biggest L1. Even that is too much, right? But then you go to Hyperliquid and it's like, hey, you can actually go to your BTC whale normie friends and say, hey, bro, generate a deposit address the same way you would on Binance. Okay, send your BTC there, and you get this thing called UBTC. You can trade it, you can withdraw it back into native Bitcoin. But hey, bro, you can click this button next to your balance on Hypercore, and you can transfer it directly to this chain. And then you can start educating them on like using native Bitcoin on Hyperliquid, and assuming they are happy with the trust assumptions of Unit, which is improving and becoming like more secure and decentralized, etc. Then you have this massive pool of capital that was never really available before. And you're correct. Like XRP, I think it's like $150 billion asset. And what are most XRP holders doing? They still believe that XRP gets used in the banks. Like that's literally this cycle. I literally had like family friends, like boomers, holding XRP, they actually outperformed most people because it pumped pretty well. And then I'm like,
you know
hey,
what they love to do? They love to buy and hold.
Yeah, they're brilliant. They're brilliant at it.
Brilliant.
And then
if Ethereum had that, right? Like, no, people don't like to hold Ethereum. So the value proposition is so clear. Keep your XRP because it's maybe the banks will use it, like whatever it is. I don't care. I don't care what happens to XRP. You keep your token, but don't miss out on the rest of crypto either. That's really okay. Well, what do you mean by that? Come deposit it. Here's how it works. Here's how lending is. It's DeFi. You've heard of DeFi and XRP, right? They've heard of it. That doesn't really happen, but like, so now we can do it, and we've got an active ecosystem that has liquidity and it has users. And if you tap into that with an asset that's great collateral, XRP is good collateral because there's tons of liquidity for it, tons of price feeds for it. It's volatile, but like that's part of the risk you take. But it's still a good asset. All of a sudden, you can use that to go play elsewhere and do whatever it is, finance trading, or I know a Bitcoin OG Bitcoin guy who he doesn't want to sell his Bitcoin. He just doesn't want to sell his Bitcoin, but he needs to pay his bills. And he doesn't want to go and lend it because like the rates are bad and he's not sure of custodians. And he was in Celsius and got rugged and in with the other one at the same time. BlockFi, in both of them. And so they're nervous. And so we just show the value proposition and say, here's what you can do. You go deposit it in HypurrFi, you borrow USDXL, you sell it for USDC, you go and take that to your bank and pay your mortgage. Like, do it. That's what it's for. Use the protocols for what they're for. You got to go make money and come pay back your loan. Like that's kind of the deal. If you want back access, but that's standard, finance. But like making those available to people and explaining the process, I walk people one by one. If you got $100, I'll walk you one by one through the protocol, how it works. If you got $1 million, I'll do the same thing. Like that's what we need to do as a community, is just continue that. And that one by one onboarding, they onboard 2 people, they onboard 2 people, and people come. And so I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, and just to echo that, that's really what the ecosystem's about, right? I think every team that I've come across really cares about its users. Like before HyperEVM launched, one of my longtime friends, his little brother, like I was shilling Hyperliquid to my friend, right? But my friend is one of those lazy people that will only listen and buy at the very top of a crypto cycle. So anyways, his little brother was in the room and he was like after I left, he messaged me, he's like, hey bro, like I heard you talking about this thing called Hyperliquid. Like I've been holding Sui and like, he's been listening to, all these podcasts shilling Sui. And then I was like, no, bro, don't do it. Like they're going to dunk on your head. And I was like, let me show you a better way. So, I taught him how to like go into Arbitrum, then bridge to Hyperliquid. And this guy put in, he's a student. So he had like $1,500. That's all he had to his name, right? So I was like, okay, bro, go and buy these spot tokens on Hyperliquid, right? This was before HyperEVM launched. And within 3 weeks, he did 10x on his portfolio, and he sold and he withdrew, and he's now the biggest Hyperliquid shiller I've seen in a long time. Just to normies, just because he made money, and that was fair play. But that in of itself, just like hand holding someone, they had a good experience. They figured out how it worked. They made money, right time, right place. And now they're telling people why Sui is a bad coin, why Hype is good.
We have to do a little bit better than crypto and DeFi in particular has done over the past 4 years. We have to go on Reddit. It sucks, but we gotta go. You gotta go on Reddit and you gotta go to the DeFi, subreddits, and you gotta engage with people and you gotta say Hyperliquid. And you don't have to shill it hard. We need to talk about it. You gotta ask your Uber driver. It's like, hey, you in crypto? What are you in? And they'll tell you what they're in and everything. They'll have, Fartcoin and XRP, and maybe they'll have great bags. And they say, are you in Hype? Like, you just got to ask them. You don't have to shill it hard, but like people need to hear that and use those informal networks to make that organic messaging go, because that's how this whole thing works, is real users who are trading on the system. And then they say to their buddy, like, dude, you got to get on here. It's the best platform. Like, it's crazy good, Perps platform. And then when you get enough of that critical mass, then people start sharing the screenshots. And then oh, who is this? And that's what's happening. Is that organic? The team's not going to come out and pay for a light show and a big party and billboard campaigns and TV spots. And we don't want them to. We want them to build the assistance fund and use it to make the product better. Airdrop us. I'll take one. That'd be great. But whatever it is they do with that, to make the product better, to make the community better, not just go out and shill and spend it. That's our job. That's what we need to do. And that's very clear.
Yeah. It was quite interesting. We actually did exactly that. So we were in an Uber, a token, and we're chatting to the guy. It's like, hey, bro, you know how the conversation goes. It's like, okay, why are you in Dubai? And I'm like, yeah, we're here for token. He's like, yeah, crypto. I was like, yeah. And he's like, you asked him like, well, what do you hold? And like, he was holding like a little bit of Sol. And then I asked him, I literally did this. I was like, bro, have you heard about Hyperliquid? And, he said no. And I quickly like opened up his crypto wallet. And then, or he was using CoinGecko portfolio, and I just went to Hype. I added it to his watch list, and I said, bro, just monitor this. Cheers. And like that in of itself, this is what we got to do, right? It's one by one, taking that starfish, throwing it back in the ocean, and this is how this game works.
Absolutely, and we're building here for very long time frames, and so I don't need 1 million users tomorrow. That'd be great. I'll take it. A bunch of market makers in token and, OTC fund desks, we start talking to them. They find out you're building a Hyperliquid. They're like, oh, do you need deals? Do you need deposits? You want to work something out? And I said, honestly, no. I'll take your money, but like, I'm not doing a deal for it, because what we really need is the ecosystem to grow. We need liquidity depth on the exchanges. One guy, like major fund, was asking us, do you want deposits? Do you want to work something out? I said, no, can you just go LP Bitcoin and Hype on HyperSwap and Kitten Swap and stuff? Because if you do, then we have good routes for our Bitcoin liquidations, and so we could increase our LTV, and that's what will create deposits, because we have users. Like, people want to deposit. It's just about risk and about growing that ecosystem on that way. So it's a little more complex, but we can be organic in that matter and talk to people, whether it's a fund manager or Uber driver or anybody in between. Let's do that, because we're here for a very long time. So we don't need to worry about getting everybody today, getting everybody tomorrow. Mm-hmm. It's going to take some time, and I'm happy with that. I don't want like win points, win airdrop in my Telegram. You open up the HyperPod Telegram, and there's some questions about points, but like, it's DeFi strategy. It's like, block structure. It's still like crazy days. There's almost 1,000 people in there, and people are just talking about, how do I strategize, and where's the yield, and what are the risk levels, and like all this great stuff. Like, we're in a really sweet spot right now. We're experiencing immense growth, and it's only going to continue. We don't need to rush that. We need to make sure that continues like along the same vibes as Hyperliquid itself. Make users feel heard, build products that people want and use, and make it a worthwhile experience for everybody. The other thing, the last thing is, I'm a builder in the ecosystem, but I'm a user. I use Felix, I use Hyperlend, I use TimeSwap, I'm in Buddy, I'm in Rub, I use HyperSwap, I use the other one, Kitten Swap. I use them all. I use us. I'm like, a huge user of HypurrFi as well, but like, use the other protocols and understand what's happening. But like right now, I'm still farming. I'm farming points because I got I have collateral, so I'm using Unit. I have Unit Bitcoin in HypurrFi, and I borrow USDE, and then I go and put USDE in the Curve pool with Felix. Now I'm earning like points all over the place and yield. I'm supporting Felix and the broader stablecoin ecosystem, which I want for USDXL as well. Yeah. And so like, as a builder, also be a user, and that's hard because like you're really focused, but it's worthwhile.
Yeah, that's like, I think the story behind this ecosystem. Everyone supports each other, and we're growing the pie. So I think to finish off the podcast, we like to end off with some Moon Boy predictions. So give us a price prediction and a TVL prediction for Hype, right, by the end of this year, so end of 2025, and then the same thing for end of 2026.
What are we at now? What's TVL? Like a bell?
We're at like 860 million. Depends like what the toggles are, but the default toggles are like 860 million.
Here's the disclaimer. I am optimistic and lucky by nature. Like I'm just like a golden retriever energy sort of guy. And so whenever I look at macro and stuff, I'm like, it's always going to get better. And so pessimists, just plug your ears. You're going to hate all this. But I think 6 billion by the end of the year is easy within target, 5 or 6 bill TVL. Because I think macro, Trump has no plans to tank the global economy, in my opinion. Like he's just a guy who wants number to go up. He's one of us in that regard, and he wants his legacy to be that everyone got rich because of him, and everyone who didn't get rich, like he's just going to ignore as part of his legacy. I really do think that. Whatever partisanship, I don't even care about partisanship. I just think that's who he is as a person, is he wants to make sure just it flies. And now he's got a vested interest in crypto. And so I think crypto as a whole is going to do incredibly well. And Hyperliquid is positioned such that 6 billion is probably FUD. I mean, I think 10 is more likely, really. And then hype price prediction, I'm really terrible trader. So 800 per point? Is that
yeah. It's I don't actually know what that translates to in price, but yeah, it's high.
Somebody did the math in one of the chats, but it's pretty high, right? $200, $250. I think a 10x from here. When you look at market cap position of hype and you look at what people are invested in, I think a 10x from here is not guaranteed, but I don't think it's out of the cards. I really don't. And like I said, I saw Solana rise from $8 to whatever that topped out at 250, and I saw BNB go from $4 to $1,800 or some insane number like that. Like I just don't think at some point, if global macro does what I think it is going to do, whenever it loosens, things markets do shift. Everything's going to fly. There's no more Bitcoin. And liquidity is going to rotate to a hot chain with real fundamentals, and 10x is well within the cards. So I don't know, $200 hype, $300 hype into your easy.
There we go. All right. So Andy from HypurrFi, thanks for tuning in. And it's been a pleasure.
I didn't get to talk much about HypurrFi, so if you guys want to come and learn about the platform, we're dope.
Show the socials.
Hypur.fi, HYPURRFI on Twitter. App.hyper.fi is the application if you want to go check it out. We're a lending protocol, very well audited, just known old school like Aave, Fraxlend contracts. Stablecoin, it's a Go fork from Aave. It's got some of its own interesting mechanisms and more mechanisms coming soon involving backing and redemptions, as well as we as a project and a company are building more than just lending pools. There's more stuff coming that we're getting really excited about and we're building towards. Lending is step one, but there's debt servicing rails that are a much larger play for us. So happy to share that with people and talk about that in our Telegram is kind of where we do most of our community business.
Cool. Thanks, Andy. Have a good one. Cheers.
Thank you, sir.